Hello, my name is Matt Bird, and welcome to the PublishU podcast, where we feature the real life stories of authors from around the world. Today, we're joined by Chris Jones from Essex in the UK, who has written a book called The Perfect Timetable. Chris, welcome.
Thank you, Matt. It's a great pleasure to be here. And yes, it's a lifetime I've got to the final publication.
Here we are. The
Yeah.
book is published and available for the world. But let's just do a little bit of the backstory. Chris, tell us about you. I mean, you've written about education. Were you a teacher before you do what you do now? I mean, what's your story?
I started teaching when I was at school. So one of my teachers allowed me into a classroom and I was teaching at the age of 15.
Wow.
Um,
What were you teaching?
in those days, it was woodwork. So I've even got some of the things I've still got some of the things I made in those days. But yes, I was teaching design technology and craft design technology. Went to uni, an idea that I was going to teach, but I did a general degree in product design. And then I started teaching, and that was 41 years ago. So I've spent 25 years in the classroom, got to leading schools, and then the last 16 years I stepped out of that day job, and I've worked with, we did the sums yesterday, 600 school leaders across the world,
Wow.
mentoring and coaching and so on. So
Yeah.
that's the journey.
Amazing. So now you run a business advising and supporting schools to give children the best education they can get. Is that right?
That's our I mean our strap line is achieve the exceptional, and that's intended to both leaders, kids, and teachers. Because each of us have that built in us. We want to achieve something that's exceptional, and that's what we support leaders to do.
Wow. And so just give me something concrete. What would be a way that you've recently helped a school, work towards greater excellence?
Yeah, I mean, there's several ways in. Some come to us because they're new in post, and there's that freshness of what do I do? This is
Yeah.
a juggernaut of things moving, and I need some experience. So we mentor and coach new leaders. We work with leaders that have got stuck who want to find a new way. Um, Quite often it's around the timetable, which is hence the book. There are things that are not working in the school. And my team, I've probably got one of the biggest timetable teams across the world, experienced timetablers who come in and help them reshape the school. Now that's very secondary focus, but in reality, we're seeing more all through schools so that's nursery through to sixth form. We help them reshape the school, so that we do that, and then sadly, we deal with a lot of schools that are struggling with money, and we do a lot of efficiency work on how do we get back onto the straight and narrow. So, we're buying too much, we're spending too much money, and how do we get back to a kind of norm? So those are our routes in, and obviously we do a lot of training work as well with leaders because it's
Yeah.
an education profession, and we're all about learning.
Absolutely. Who's it who once said a learning organization is one in which every member is committed to lifelong learning?
Absolutely. And I fundamentally believe that we need to set up young learners with that ambition of being continually learning. And that's the process that we're about. It's not just do school and then do life. We need to learn how to learn.
Yeah. And it's different for different children, isn't it? I mean, I'm dyslexic and ADHD. We didn't know that when I was at school, so I was put in remedial classes for maths and English, which obviously wasn't ideal. Um, but how do you help schools adapt for children with different needs, if I can put it
That's
like that?
a brilliant question, Matt. And I would say most of us in schools and school leaders are taught around here's the teacher, here's the class, here's the ambition, but it's one thing. And I talk a lot about the one size fits all. And your story, Matt, is a great picture of that. The truth is, every child is different, and every child deserves an adaptable curriculum. I would go as boldly as to say that special education needs and alternative provision are a product of the system because we've
Yes.
not been adaptable, and therefore one of the things I mean, so, I get into the stuff in the book. The book is not about how we just timetable. It's that bigger ambition about what we believe is a good education for every child that matters, and every child that comes through the door matters. So, how are we adaptable? how are we shaping our curriculum ambition as much as our practice to that end.
Mm, amazing. And so, well, let's talk about the book. I mean, your book, The Perfect Timetable, is now published.
Yes.
It's globally available.
Yep.
Anybody, anywhere can buy a copy, get a copy.
Yep.
What is it that people listening now need to know about your book, Chris?
What they need to know is it's not a book about how you do the timetabling process. So you can go and buy books about blocks and software and that kind of stuff. This is about it's an approach to the dark art of scheduling for those who fear it. And I go into schools and deal with leadership teams who they've left the timetabling to that nerd in the corner, usually the scientist or the mathematician who knows about logic puzzles. But this is about an approach that shapes our whole school, our whole ethic of education. And I believe that there is more to timetabling than simply, I can put this block in that space. That's how a lot of people see timetabling. So the perfect timetable is about ambitions. It's about your vision and values. It's about how you deliver that within the ethic of physical limitations. So, I've done this, I've worked with schools hundreds and hundreds of schools over the last 15, 16 years, and I did it myself for 30 years.
Wow.
From now, I've been doing it for 30 years, and it is more than just simply how you use software. It's that ambition and those goals. So, an approach to the dark art. Let's put that aside.
The
Shine
dark
a light on
art.
it. Yeah.
No, sure it's not sci-fi.
Um, well, for some people, it appears that way. They are in awe of it because they don't understand it, or they fear it, and that's the bit. That's the purpose of the book, to uncover that. You can handle this stuff, and you can have the conversations that are needed, and don't just let it go. And have this idea of every child matters, and what we do matters to them. And we talk a lot about the lived experience of children, and Matt, you'll know that because of your life from that start point has been affected by it, as every child was. Neurodiversity is the truth that we're not the same. So why do we educate with children the same way for everybody? And if you don't fit, we'll do something else. Well, that's not adaptability. That's also not affordable.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, isn't it? And this, and the amount of money that's spent on special needs. I've got three children. One of my
Yep.
children was neurodivergent, very similar to
Yep.
myself,
Yep.
because often it's hereditary. And I was sad that they encountered the same things that I experienced decades before.
Yep.
Um, and if education was adaptable, we wouldn't need special needs. I really that phrase that you said earlier, that really makes sense to me. You know,
Well,
every child has a special need,
yes.
so we need to be adaptable to them all. It's not that one group of children are normal and one group of children are not normal, so they need special education. It's not quite as black and white as that, is it?
Never is. And I've spent 40 years in front of classes and more than that. And I could go on with all sorts of stories. I mean, I've worked in challenging schools. That's where I learned the process. And I mean by that, you know, knives, guns, multiple pregnancies in a year, all these kind of things that teachers sort of look at and think, wow, that's probably the one thing that kind of changed my mind for doing it every day. But that's another story. But the whole thing around what we're doing for children matters. You can probably hear it in my voice. I mean, I am passionate about the fact that we have to adapt our systems for children, and it's not good enough. Not adaptive teaching puts the load on teachers. What I talk about is adaptive curriculum, and that's around all the experience I've gained about looking and analysing schools to shape them to meet the children's needs. So the lived experience is so much stronger. It could be so different. And neurodiversity is the product of what that's humanity. We're none of us are the same, and you see that in every classroom. But our response to that shouldn't be, well, do this because that's the answer. Well, it isn't. And the perfect timetable and the efficient school and the other stories that I've got to tell will kind of unpack that.
Yeah.
Here where we are, the perfect timetable is at that goal. It's not the book that will tell you how to put blocks in place. It's that challenge to the approach, our thinking, our values, our
Yeah.
purpose.
So, Chris, tell us about one school that you've helped, develop a perfect timetable, develop that vision and values and the things you're talking about. Make it obviously change the names of people and places, but
Yep.
give us a real lived example.
So there's some areas of the country which are known to be entrenched and difficult in England, and we are now, speaking to other regions of the UK and further around. But I'll give the one example. So we went into a school. I was asked to go to a school. It was on the list of the bottom five in the country. Poor results, low
Gosh.
attendance, as in, lower than 60% nationally. That's 2 days a week for every child out of school, which is, can you imagine a school where the children are only attending 3 days? That's just not acceptable by any means. They had an AP provision, alternative provision at the bottom of the field, and the kids were literally laying on the table praying Scrabble if they were doing that, chucking stuff, chucking uh, stalls and furniture. It was just a bedlam. And we walked into the school and I saw more children in the corridors than I did in the classrooms. Now, we did our work. We worked with the leader, a newly appointed head who was having a desperate time, and the deputy who was actually laid out by a year 11 student as he walked in the building on his first day. Every admiration for him because he's still there. We reshaped the curriculum. We found them actually about £350,000 of what they were spending in unnecessary staff costs. And with that money, they invested in they called it the prison, the staff called it. It was the place that kids were sent if they were difficult. We found them some money and they turned it into a hairdressing studio. So they have hairdressing and beauty. They've got a business centre. Now that school has gone from low, really, really low attendance to national average. They've got the best results that school has ever seen. Their role is now full because the process that we've gone through, and it isn't just writing a timetable, it's about reshaping curriculum, it's about ambition. I'll tell you the one thing that really affected me more than anything else, the parents were disaffected, they hated the school, it was just an inevitability. We live in the area, our kids will go there. We set up the choice process with the school, and it's the only event I've ever been to where, when presented with kind of choices of curriculum, the parents actually stood up and applauded the leadership team and said, "This is what we want." We wanted the school to be listening to us, and that's the ambition. So I'm talking here about not just physically changing a timetable, but actually physically managing the people's expectations and getting them involved. That to me was that's not that long ago. That school is now one of the most improved schools in the country, as
Yeah,
in the journey they've been on. Now,
yeah, yeah.
real,
Distance
that's we've
traveled.
been,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Incredible, really incredible, Chris. Thank you for making that so real for us. So this, The Perfect Timetable, is actually the first book in a book series.
Yeah, I've got lots to say, as you probably gather.
So give it, I mean, don't go into too much detail, but give us
No.
a sense. What's the journey you want to take people on with this series of books?
Well, the first book, I don't, it will be published as the second book. So the Efficient School is out in electronic form now, but that's around the kind of management of costs because we all talk about investing in children, and I genuinely believe there are resources around, and I don't buy into the deficit mindset. So that's where I started. Let's come back to the straight and narrow. Secondly, let's have the ethics around what we're trying to do sorted. So the perfect timetable is that goal. Where I want to go next is lots of school teachers and leaders are looking for the magic thing that, take it off the shelf and put this in front of a class and it will solve all my problems. I don't believe after doing this for 40 years that's the case. So one of the books will be called Make It Your Own. So understanding, what we need of the education process, all of the bits that need to be in there, but make it your own. Because I mean, as a design technologist, we used to say, ideation is the key. Come up with all these ideas and then pick one and go with it and make it your own. Well, that's the idea. So the books will be, what is an impactful curriculum? What needs to be in there? To me, creativity, um, character, and enterprise are key in there. So that they're things that I would say internationally
Yeah,
are key. Then make it your own, and then how do you lead it? So you can have, it can be a mess if you don't, and so that's the journey I'm looking to go on. What's important? How do I make it mine? What in my context, and then how do I lead it? That's the journey I'm going on.
incredible, incredible. So
Thank
this
you.
series of books really mirrors the work that your company is doing in schools.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, in fact, I often say to leaders, just wait a little bit and that one will be out. It's
Yeah,
coming soon. In fact, I had that conversation with somebody yesterday, but it was that, yeah, it'll come. It is everything that I do, everything I present. If you know me, you'll know the books. That's
yeah, yeah.
simply it.
Amazing. And you did the Writing My Book course,
Yes, I
Chris.
did. Yes.
I mean, what was the biggest barrier you felt you were facing in writing your book, and how did the course help you overcome it?
I've never been a natural writer. In fact, I wrote in the forward of the book, the my English teacher, if she was still alive, would be staggered to the thought of me writing a book and publishing it. Um, Good old Joan Terry, if she was around, she would be amazed. I think my people around me would hear me say, "Well, who am I to write a book? Who am I to put it in, in a published form?" Um, I just do what I do, and I hopefully do it as well as I can, and it makes a difference. You've heard the examples of
Yeah,
what we do. 600 schools in the last few years is testament in the sense that we are having an impact. Um, I say we. I guess it is built around what I do. So,
yeah,
what did the course do? It made me finish it because I've been on this journey for 10 years, and it made me structure my writing to get it done. Um, and has kind of pushed me to do the others.
yeah. There we go. So watch this space. This is the first of a number of PublishU podcasts with Chris about the books that he's writing to inspire schools, teachers, about how they can deliver excellent education. Chris, as we wrap up today, what is your hope for this book, The Perfect Timetable? What do you hope? If there's one thing you hope it achieves, what is it?
Genuinely to empower leaders to get involved in something that they fear or don't want to touch, because the lived experience of children is so important in this journey. And if we don't do something about it, I fear for the education system. So what my I don't say that over dramatically. I genuinely believe, with the challenges of AI and finances, and education is so fundamental to the future of our young people that I genuinely believe we've got to take it a little bit more seriously. And there's that's we need to get and understand it. So my ambition, that leaders will take it seriously, read it, take it in, and do something with it. And I genuinely ask you to make it your own. Take the principles and do something with it in your place.
Mm, amazing. Great challenge to finish with, Chris. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you all for listening to the Publish You podcast featuring the real life stories, the genuinely real life stories of authors from around the world. If you're interested in becoming an author like Chris, please do visit our website, www.publishu.com, publishu.com. And if you enjoyed this broadcast, make sure you subscribe for more. Thank you so much for joining us, and goodbye for now.